Hey everybody, this is Perch. The She-Hulk show is over on Disney Plus. What's interesting to me is you kind of step back and you look at these shows. One consistent pattern that's starting to emerge is that, with the exception of I think WandaVision, the shows get a lot of kind of anger and irritation at the beginning, or at least there's fans. It's just all the heat is happens right kind of in the first two or three episodes. It usually dies off by then. Not necessarily, it doesn't feel like people are being won over by quality or by it sucking. It doesn't feel like it's really settled one way or another that people are making their opinions, but it feels like a lot of the people who dislike it start to, they fully lose interest, and it's not egregious enough that they keep bitching the entire season. So like Rings of Power, where that just seemed to irritate people every single episode. Things like She-Hulk, Miss Marvel, the Falcon and Winter Soldier, some of these those shows just kind of, I think the two that seem to escape that, I said WandaVision was one. Loki was probably the other. There was some irritation with Loki, but not too much, and people seem to, that just didn't have the same kind of chatter that the others have had. And before you too quickly go, well, what's the common denominator there? Well, Scarlet Witch and Loki featured white people. I mean, She-Hulk is white, also green. Winter Soldier, like 50% of that was white. I'm sorry. Now I'm trying to second guess framing stuff in racial terms, which is a path to insanity. But regardless, if you look at kind of Miss Marvel, a lot of kind of irritation with that. Weirdly, a lot less irritation about the thing that I was more not irritated about. But it was, so as I mentioned, by the way, on a previous show, my kids liked Miss Marvel a lot when it launched. They thought it was a lot of fun. It was for them. And then this Scott Pilgrim kind of stuff going on where they'd sketch in parts of the scene to like emphasize something. They liked it. And somewhere, like we got a couple episodes in advance, and then like episode 3 and 4, it fell off a cliff. Like the kids lost interest almost immediately. And then by the time they did the 5th episode, they were the going back in time episode, the Back to the Future episode. It was over. And then She-Hulk kind of, my older daughter never liked it. My younger daughter, if you may have heard from the video, liked the twerking, and she mainly liked it because it was funny to watch a grown up, who was green, shake her butt. She thought that was funny, which isn't really a ringing endorsement for the show, but. And then they never, like, Falcon Winter Soldier was dead on arrival, by and large. So was Loki. WandaVision, for whatever reason, just captivated both of them the entire time. So I don't know. You're not sure what to make of all this. But it strikes me that if you're doing a show, you really would like to keep that. Ideally, everybody's loving your show and, life's good. But if people are hating your show, you probably want, that'd be your second choice, consistent hatred of the show. I think complete apathy toward the end is probably not what you want. And it felt like what happened is, with She-Hulk, for example, a lot of people came in, you're making Stan Lee spin in his grave and all this kind of comments were made. And then the twerking episode happened and people are like, bastard, it's over. It's over. A lot of anger. And then the people who disliked it just seemed to kind of go away. There's still some out there. Make no mistake about it. There's always some people out there. But the volume went way down. But what didn't go down were the people who were liking the show and saying, this is for all the chuds. It's like the chuds have kind of gone home. I don't know who you're fighting against anymore. Everybody's kind of, moved on from this. But there's always that contingent of people that are like, I'll bet this makes you mad. It's like, no. The studios would probably like it if more people were mad, but not really. I think caring has left the building. Anyway, but here's a mail on She-Hulk, and this is kind of touching on this. Is what it says. Perch. Here's an interesting perspective, by the way. This person out the gate basically identifies they're not watching any of this, but still has an opinion, which is a very American thing to do. Perch. This is coming from a man who has never read nor watched She-Hulk in any of her varieties. However, I've watched a few opinions on both her comic and TV version, and now I have one of my own. That's how YouTube works, folks. Most people don't admit that, though. They're like, I have been a fan of She-Hulk since 1920. Wait, what? Anyway, Naturally, I desire to share this opinion as soon as possible while it is still fresh. Hot takes are popular. What can I say? I would hate for any careful consideration to ruin that. I appreciate the style here. Fuck thinking about it. Anyway, so here we go. Consider this. The original comic She-Hulk, that I gather was a fairly blunt parody or critique on some of the more base habits of comics and writers at the time. Not really. So not the to be pedantic about it. No, the original She-Hulk was pretty much a straight up Marvel comic in the 70s, and then there were appearances in certainly in the Avengers, and then Byrne got his hands on her in the Fantastic Four, and there was an issue where basically a pornographer took a photo of She-Hulk sunbathing, and then she chased him. She basically chased him around trying to get back the photo, and she was angry, and finally she learned she had to live with it, and it turned out that the photo was printed in black and white, or as I recall, and so you couldn't even tell it was her because the green didn't appear. So anyway, that issue of Fantastic Four is a one and done, seen as a little lighthearted. And from what I've been told, that issue became kind of the idea springboard that became the She-Hulk comic written and drawn by John Byrne, which is one that you're referring to, which is the one that was a little bit more of a parody. Not a parody. It took that kind of look at comics and made fun of the writer and the artist, in this case Byrne, and but it still had action in it. It was still a comic where there were stakes. It just had a lighter tone. It broke the fourth wall. It basically took shortcuts, like Jennifer's like, I've got to get from here to here, but thankfully I'm in a comic book, so I can just walk between panels and don't need to waste time on an airplane. And so stuff like that. So that kind of humor. Back to the mail. It says, current TV She-Hulk, isn't she appropriately embodying all of the base and stupid habits of the current MCU and the comics that mirror them? She twerked with a pop star. Why? Because it's popular in the target demographic, presumably. It's about a superhero, but is it? Is it even about a lawyer? It seems, remember, I've not even seen so much as She-Hulk in my Netflix queue. Well, it's because it's on Disney Plus. You'll never see it in your Netflix queue until Disney Plus, goes out of business and Netflix buys the rights, proving they're not, broke, and that would never happen anyway. But it's mostly about her talking with girlfriends to support each other and doing girl things as awesome girls doing everyday stuff, but awesome. That's a sentence. I suspect I could go on, especially if I could be bothered to inform myself at all past this point. However, I think that I have at least enough to suggest the idea. I think TV She-Hulk is a faithful modernization of comic She-Hulk. Okay. So Perch, how did I do? Did I read the YouTube tea leaves right, or am I just another overconfident fool? Please enjoy answering this if you do, as much as you can. I dare you to disagree with this brilliant insight. I like the cut of your jib, mister. So it's trying to be that. And the last episode of She-Hulk, spoilers, really, they break the fourth wall completely by her kind of crawling out of her own TV show and then going and yelling at the writers. I said this in a previous video. It's sort of that. It's mostly that. It's definitely trying to be that. But it misses in a way that I can't ever. I have been trouble putting my finger on. I think the trick is, and this will be a bad example, but maybe this is kind of indicative of the whole thing. In the comic, She-Hulk would kind of be sarcastic about other celebrities and other things. She didn't necessarily fawn all over them. She would be more, she was the voice of the reader to some extent. Maybe that's the issue. It wasn't so much that She-Hulk was trying to parody Marvel comics and the comics in general. She was trying to kind of almost be a voice of the reader. That's where she'd go, hey, have you ever noticed this wacky thing where, characters are put to, said there's going to be a guest star and then they don't really appear in the comic? Does that piss you off? Well, I'm pissed off about it too. I'm you. She-Hulk was written to not exactly, not to be the fan, but in some cases to give voice to what the fans and the readers were thinking. And in the TV show, she's definitely making fun of the MCU and definitely kind of, doing this. But the jokes seem more like the voice of the writers, not necessarily the voice of the fan and the viewers. So, you're like when Megan Thee Stallion came on, She's twerking and all the rest. And like I said, that's my youngest daughter's favorite moment of that show. It's the only thing she's going to remember about that show. But it's not the twerking. It's more, She-Hulk's like, I would kill for you, Megan Thee Stallion, and kind of really like, we got a celebrity on this show. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited. But the TV She-Hulk, or sorry, the comic book She-Hulk in Byrne's run, I don't think that's true. I don't think that's how the character behaved, because again, the character is kind of giving voice to the comic reader about the things that the comic reader finds ridiculous or popular or offensive or whatever it happens to be. And in the TV show, a viewer would more likely say something like, so you're selling out by getting a celebrity guest star. So if the She-Hulk was written like the She-Hulk in the comic book, the She-Hulk would go something along the lines of, I guess our ratings are down, although do streaming shows even have ratings? Anyway, here's Megan Thee Stallion, a big superstar. And then she'd work with her. That would be more, if she said a line like that, that would fit more of what She-Hulk of the comic was like. It's again, it's close, but it feels just slightly off, and it's also one thing about Byrne in the comic is Byrne fully committed to the bit, even to the detriment of the series. At sometimes some of those jokes did not work. I mean, quite bluntly, they didn't go over quite well, but Byrne did them anyway. I mean, so I think there's that aspect of the TV show still had to kind of at times say, you're supposed to care about the intelligentsia, and you're supposed to, care about these things. Like, they still wanted you to care about stuff. They didn't fully commit to the sarcastic bit that Byrne had. It's not a complete miss. It's not like it's nothing like the show. And I think people are like, this is nothing like the She-Hulk comic. No, that's not true either. It's definitely doing a run at it. It's attempting to kind of be that Byrne comic book, but it's just not quite there. It's like I don't know whether they didn't go all in with the sarcasm, or like I said, maybe it's that some of the jokes felt like they were coming from the writer's room and what the writers are thinking. The whole bit about Kevin the robot. I mean, it's okay. It's funny, but it still didn't feel like it didn't feel quite right, I guess the best way to put it. So, I don't think She-Hulk is the most offensive thing in the world by any stretch of the imagination. I think that people, it didn't ruin any childhoods. It's nothing like that. But it's still, I don't know. Like as I said, it didn't land quite right for me as what I think it was trying to be. But your mileage may vary. Anyway, thank you very much for the mail and the also being upfront with where you're coming from. That's always nice. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below, what you think about it all, and thanks for listening.